Starfinder just got crazy! Starfinder RPG's new book, Galactic Ancestries, officially releases on April 1st. And you get to play a lot of really strange ancestries, from the weird to the monstrous. Yes, that is a dandelion with a grenade launcher and a miniature sun with a machine gun. In addition to 21 new ancestries adding to the 10 in the core rulebook, we have 7 legacy ancestries, those coming from Pathfinder, and 2 new versatile heritages, which can be mixed with any ancestry. By the way, I saw this chart from a recent gaming convention, someone took a photo of it, of the latest rankings from ICV2, which compiles sales data from friendly local gaming stores and Kickstarter, and it looks like Starfinder made it to number 3. So it's cool to see it have such a successful launch. And also, this doesn't account for many of the people who buy Paizo products through their web store or other websites. So I've been on a kind of mini hiatus imposed by real life. And so it's been a while since I really sat down and spent some time with a Paizo book and looked through it. And I did that with this book, and I just was reminded of a lot of the effort and passion and sense of humor that goes into their design. And I really appreciate this book. First, let me introduce myself. I am Ronald the Rules Lawyer. I'm a lawyer who runs tabletop role-playing games. I also have a cat named Megan. My preferred system is Pathfinder 2e. Support my Patreon. I don't make money as an attorney. For an explanation as to why, look at the video whose thumbnail is on the screen. Supporting my Patreon gives you ad-free early access to most of my videos and exclusive content. There's a new innovation in this book which they should port over to Pathfinder, which is standardized ancestry feats. No, these are not feats that any ancestry can take. They basically serve as space savers, as templates, so that every ancestry entry can have a short paragraph that lists these feats and customizes them for that ancestry. Feats like Ancestral Cantrip, which gives you an innate cantrip that is thematic for your ancestry. Ancestral Dark Vision, those ancestries that give you low light vision, here's the option to turn that into dark vision. Ancestral Skills, that's the feat you often see that give you lore for that particular ancestry, and 2 other skills. Here, that is made into a template that any ancestry can now refer to. Here's Ancestral Unarmed Attack, and it gives you a table if you want to work with your GM to customize your ancestry or even make a new ancestry that has a unique or unconventional unarmed attack. There's a double draw for ancestries who have more than 2 hands to interact twice with their items. There's Mount. There are some ancestries in this book that are suitable to serve as mounts for other creatures, including other player characters. You're still, per the rules, limited to only 2 actions if you're bearing another rider, but this lets that rider have 3 actions. Windwalker, if you have a fly speed, this feat lets you, whenever you stride, you can fly or use basic flight instead. So it looks like the haste spell, which normally limits you to the stride action, lets you have a 4th action to fly, which I didn't know was possible in the system, either Pathfinder or Starfinder before. So here's an example paragraph for one of the core ancestries, the Barathu. In only several lines, it lists 8 feats for this ancestry that weren't available to it before. And you can see how it uses those feats as templates. Ancestral Magic, which grants you spells that have ranks, defines the spells that you can take at various ranks. Anyway, this is an excellent system. It's a space saver, and Pathfinder should do the same. The next section is a short chapter giving more support for the core ancestries from the player core book. Each gets a lore update and 3 pages of new heritages and feats, including standardized feats like what we just saw for the Barathu. Now, I can't possibly cover everything in this book. It'll be a small fraction. So I will use my subjective opinion, what I find interesting and exciting and notably strong or appealing to my quirkiness. So I'm just going to warn you that some of your favorites will be ignored or given short shrift. And besides, I only had time to skim this book. I wanted to make this video, and it's going to be long enough already. The Android has a new heritage called the Electronica Android. You're basically the DJ for your party, and you can also do linguistic actions substituting music for language. So you can insult someone with a bon mot feat. It replaces the linguistic trait with the emotion trait. So you can insult somebody with music. You can also make an impression and improve someone's attitude towards you with music. So very interesting stuff. And there are these feats that support it. There's Cue the Music. You know sometimes a good tune is the best way to start a brawl. You get to roll performance for initiative, and you give the entire party a +1 status bonus that stacks with the circumstance bonus you get from scouting to your initiative rolls and to saving throws against emotion effects during the first round. And you get the impressive performance skill feat. So basically, you get to start every battle with fight music. Very awesome. And there's this other feat called Let's Jam, level 9. Once per hour, you spin up your musical instruments to drop the bass and pick up the pace. All allies within 30 feet can, as a reaction, step, stride up to half their speed, or take cover. Note that this has the traversal trait new to Starfinder, which means any reference to the stride action can also be replaced by some other kind of movement action like fly or burrow if someone has the appropriate speed. For the Patra, our cat-like ancestry, we had this feat that was notable. I'm a cat lover, so I was happy to see Patra Caterwaul. Your strange singing voice can cause a moment's reconsideration or hesitation. You do a performance check. It's kind of like that goblin song feat, but this one makes them frightened, 1, and if you critically succeed, they are also stupefied, 1, as long as they're frightened. I find hilarious the idea of people being dumbfounded and confused by a cat. And then there's a caterwaul strut. So it requires the previous feat. You can sashay while you sing. You stride, and you can use your caterwaul at any point during the stride. If you're more than 5 feet above the target of this caterwaul, the range of Patra increases by 30 feet. So if you have a higher elevation, you can project your caterwaul 60 feet. All these little weird details. If you're on a runway, for example. Building on this feat chain is a level 17 ancestry feat, the Caterwaul Concertina. You can only do this once per day. You spend 2 actions and can target 5 creatures instead of 1, and if any allies are in range, speak Patra also, they can spend their reaction to join in your caterwaul, increasing the frightened value to 2 that victims get. Next things I'll highlight are the Skittermander. First, I just wanted to highlight this artwork. It's amazing. I'll just give you a moment to appreciate that. Well, we now have a new heritage called Shiny Skittermander, the Glittermander, I will call it. And oh, hey, they actually use the word Glittermander in the text. Your heritage imparts you with a lustrous sheen of fur. You can make your fur sparkle and shimmer like a brightly colored gem for 1 hour, giving you a +2 status bonus to make an impression and performance for characters who can see you. And once per day, you can shake off the glitter to all your allies so they can have the same benefit for 10 minutes. And there are, of course, feats that support this heritage. At level 1, you can take Glitter Cloud. It says, you've learned to take advantage of your glitter to help you disappear rather than stand out. Once per hour for 2 actions, you can conceal yourself. You shake out your fur, creating a cloud of glitter, giving you concealment until the end of your turn, and you can then step or stride. Glitter Everywhere, level 5. This makes it so that when you feint against a creature, trying to make them off guard with your deception skill, you additionally make them dazzled until the end of your turn. If you critically succeed, they're dazzled until the start of your next turn. Now, why is it important to just get the regular success if they are not making attacks against you probably on your turn? Well, if I'm not mistaken, I believe you can use the fact that you are now concealed to the target to do the hide action, and even when the dazzled expires, you are still hidden from them. Still, that critical success effect probably makes it worthwhile anyway, if you feint a lot. Next, we move on to Legacy Ancestries, ancestries that are core ancestries from the Pathfinder game. We get some very useful lore updates for all of them. Elves, for example, who, by the way, in the Pathfinder setting, are aliens from not Venus, from the planet Castrovel in the Galarian campaign setting. They were affected the most by the strange event in the Starfinder universe called the Gap, that period of time of which people have no memory. Elves, with their impossibly long lives, found themselves with broken memories, with unfamiliar families, and feeling disconnected. They felt betrayed by their astronomers and seers, who had warned them of the first cataclysm on the planet Galarian before, but not this time. So they have retreated to their home planet of Castrovel and are insular and suspicious of outsiders. There are similar write-ups for all the other ancestries. They each get 3 to 4 pages of new heritages and feats, and I just want to point out here the dwarf. Very cute artwork, seeing these traditionally fantasy ancestries in a sci-fi setting, or science fantasy setting as this is. They each get a paragraph of standardized feats. Their ancestral weapon familiarity gives them artillery laser, breaching gun, and other appropriate weapons. And they have the grouchy nature feat. In a universe of optimists, dwarves can be down-to-earth grumps. If you spend more than 1 minute grumbling or grousing, you gain a +2 circumstance bonus to the next skill check you make within a minute. You can only do this once per hour, but okay, first I find this hilarious that you're more likely to force open that door or pick that lock because you're complaining. It actually makes it pretty strong outside of combat. Next we have our iconic goblin, which gets a lore update. Their wild, chaotic nature is updated with some mechanics for this science fantasy setting. Here are their level 17 feats. Malfunction Aura. For one reason or another, machines around you often spontaneously break down, and any creature that starts their turn next to you has to do a fortitude save to prevent their wielded tech items from glitching. And then there's Nuke Form. It requires the mutant heritage, which, okay, there's a new heritage that gives you some kind of mutation, and that's now on the screen. But here, with a flash of nuclear fire, you suddenly transform into a radioactive monster. You gain the effects of a 7th rank elemental form for 1 minute. Your strikes expose them to radiation sickness, which can make them sickened 1. So very thematic stuff. And now we're going to get to the new ancestries. And wow, was this a lot to go over. I have to say that there is a lot of crunch in this book. Out of the about 220 pages, I would say 150 pages are wall-to-wall heritages and feats. And there's a total of 6 pages devoted to every new ancestry. Sadly, we don't have a visual spread of them in this book, like we've had for other books when a lot of new ancestries are introduced. I wish they did that. Instead, we do get this page that lists all of them, and there are 21. This is a lot. No need to pause the screen. I'm going to talk briefly about each one. I'll again give my caveat. I can only point out a small percentage of things, and it's all based on what I subjectively find interesting. So here we go. First is the Bantrid, the rolling ball ancestry. Each has a sidebar which gives a little blurb. This one says, having only recently awoken from stasis on the small Ryphorian moon of Hib, Bantrids are a compact but stout species with the unique physiological feature of using a dense sphere for locomotion. They both physically and culturally drive themselves with an overwhelming desire to keep moving forward, whether it be through technological innovation or interstellar exploration. Scientific curiosity is a big theme among these ancestries, by the way. They have this feature, restless. They are physiologically compelled to move. Unless you're in a moving vehicle, if you are immobilized, you become frightened 1 and cannot lower it. All of your stats go down. Here's a couple of feats. This level 1 feat is called Coming Through. When you tumble through to try to go through an enemy's space, you can go through multiple enemies, not just one. You make a new check with each enemy. Here's a level 13 feat, Unstoppable Inertia. Whenever you would become fatigued, immobilized, paralyzed, slowed, or suppressed, you can use your reaction to delay the effects until the end of your next turn. But you can keep that delay going if you use your move action during your turn. This looks like it prevents you from being immobilized from being grappled, or the restrained condition, which protects you from your own weakness and lets you move to end that grapple and avoid the other negative effects. So that's pretty strong. This level 17 feat is Underfoot Stampede. For 3 actions, you get to stride twice and try to trip all the creatures that you move through, and they can be one size category larger than you or smaller. Next is the Brenneri. Otter-like Brenneris are often friendly and social. A peaceful Brenneri might clutch a friend's hand or squeeze their favorite rock for comfort, while an aggressive Brenneri might dive headfirst into conflict. You can tell the people who wrote these ancestries are lovers of the respective animal they are based on. They all have empathetic whiskers. You continually sense the emotions of people around you. You have a -1 circumstance to your will save against emotion effects. And when you end your turn adjacent to an ally who's frightened, you have to do a DC 5 flat check to avoid becoming frightened yourself. Here's one heritage called Reef Brenneri. You are smaller than other Brenneri, and you have the ability Big Wet Eye Blink. When a creature critically hits you with a strike, you can, as a reaction once per day, blink your big wet eyes at the triggering creature, forcing it to pull back on its attack. This lessens their damage, but I thought this was hilarious. It reminds me of the Kobold Cringe feat. However, looking that up, that one was not limited to once per day, and I'm not sure why this should be. And this is a heritage, not just an ancestry feat. And the next feat is Hold Hands. Otters are so cute. I just learned while making this that otters hold hands when they sleep so that they don't drift apart. With an action, you can hold your ally's hand and get a +1 circumstance bonus to AC and a +2 circumstance bonus against efforts to demoralize, reposition, shove, or trip either of you. Next is the Copaxi. Copaxis once lived in majestic floating sky cities. Their abuse of their homeworld's environment led to devastating civil wars and has ruined the planet. Now they must chart a new path. If you want to play a member of a species who can adapt their coral-like body over time, and with an innate but slumbering connection to magical and cosmic gravitational forces, then you should play a Copaxi. They have these features: gravitonic attunement, they ignore the clumsy and off-guard penalties while untethered in zero gravity. And they also have the ability to evolve. They can spend 1 month of downtime to retrain their heritage. They can also do other downtime activities while retraining their heritage, ancestry feats, initial trained skills, skill increases, and skill feats. And here's one feat that they can take at level 13 called Propelled Polyp Print. You have remarkable control over the polyps on your body. When you cast Telekinetic Hand, as long as you have line of effect and line of sight to your hand, you can use it as the origin point for your spells that have a line or cone area. So that's really interesting. That is a cantrip that you have to sustain that you can move around the battlefield, or maybe even set up an ambush. Also, once per day, you can reveal yourself to be a decoy and reappear in the space where your hand is. Next is the Entu Colony, basically a sentient fungal swarm you are. Entus are telepathic fungal colonies that can form a perfect symbiosis with animal hosts. A willing Entu host transforms into an uplifted, thinking creature possessing a dual soul fused permanently in harmony with its Entu companion. Now, I'm a little unclear on it saying a willing host because it says Entu symbiotes are created when an unintelligent animal consumes Entu spores. The heritage lay out specific animal creatures that you can join with, giving you some specific abilities. But the one I'll point out is the hostless heritage. You don't have a host, and you get this special action that you can use once per day. You basically merge with another person's body. They have to be willing for 10 minutes, and you can still do each of your actions, and you have to be targeted separately by enemies. Your host has to move for you, and they gain your ancestry feats that are not reliant on being a hostless Entu. They also gain any speed or speed types that you have. So it leads to some really interesting moments. I'll just highlight one feat. Level 9 Entu Spore Cloud. Spend 2 actions to try to dazzle creatures within 10 feet, as well as limit their vision to 10 feet or even blind them. Next is the Fonqugon, and one of my complaints of this book is that there are some hard to pronounce names, and I would have appreciated a pronunciation guide. If you want to play a sapient ooze from a treacherous planet where intelligence and environmental stewardship aren't just important values but key to the species' survival, you should play a Fonqugon. And yeah, if you look closely, you can see they describe it as you have a body with countless tiny subordinate brains that travel all over your form, helping you control and reshape your limbs and appendages. So what does being an ooze mean? You have a speed of only 20 feet, but you do have a climb speed of 5 feet. Unlike other creatures with a climb speed, you don't have to make a check to climb completely smooth walls or even traverse a ceiling. Here's a couple of feats. There's 4 arm brains. You've devoted some of your brains to have 4 arms, subject to the usual limitations that multiple arm pairs have in the system. Next is a level 13 feat called Used to It. If something critically hits you with energy damage, or you critically fail a save against energy damage, you can, as a reaction, because you're used to taking serious amounts of damage from all kinds of extreme weather from your home planet, do a DC 15 flat check to try to turn that into a normal hit or a normal failure. So if there's a flaming sword hitting you, if that crits you, this says the triggering attack becomes a normal hit. So I think in that case, the physical damage also goes from being double damage to regular damage. Next is the Formian. These are psychic insectile humanoids with features similar to gigantic ants. They coexist on Castrovel with Lashuntas and elves, but brutal generation-spanning wars between Formian colonies and Lashunta city-states still loom in living memory. They are more than components of a hive mind, but their social nature and psychic connections are core aspects of their identities. They have limited telepathy, which makes sense because of hive mind. Here's a feat, level 5 Call to Help. At the start of every turn, you get an additional reaction which you can use only to aid. Pretty useful if you're really good at aiding. Next are G-folians. They are a species of philosophical hexapods. I tried to look up what hexapods are and I didn't quite understand. They are a subset of arthropods, whatever those are. Someone in the comments who knows science better will explain. They have a fire breath. 2 actions, 1d4 damage, which escalates as you level up, of course. You cannot use it again for 1 to 4 rounds. Here are a few of their feats. Level 1, Crab Walk. If a foe targets you with a strike, you can, as a reaction, Crab Walk. You get a +1 circumstance bonus to your AC, and if it misses you, you get to Step as a free action. This upgrades with Crab Scuttle at level 9, which increases that bonus to +2, and you get to stride up to half your speed or do some other kind of movement. Another level 1 feat is Flame Belch. You get a fire unarmed attack with a range increment of 30 feet that, if it critically hits, does persistent fire damage. You can change your damage from these abilities to cold or acid, by the way, with another level 1 feat. Here's a level 13 feat, War Mount Shell. You basically create a weapon mount with your shell that doesn't take up any hands. Next are the Ijtikris. Colloquially called stone-faced squids, if you want to play a resilient explorer with unique adaptations to their homeworld's waters, you should play an Ijtikri. Now, I don't think they're useless on land, because they actually have a normal walking speed of 25 feet, as well as a swim speed of 10. They have a mantle that gives them resistance to precision damage equal to half their level, minimum 1. I'll just point out one notable feat, All Grabber Stance at level 17. Once per day, you can enter this stance. You can make lashing limb strikes, which have a 15-foot reach and the grapple trait. You can also spend 3 actions to do the Hug the World activity. And I think you can do this multiple times during the stance. You're just limited to using the stance once per day. You can do a grapple or a lashing limb strike against each enemy within your reach, and you don't count the multiple attack penalty until you're done with all of them. So this character is basically a wrestler's dream. Next is the Izalguun. These large, 6-limbed people focus on community and survival, and they don't like to talk about their history. Notably, they are large, and they can switch between being bipedal and quadrupedal. When they're bipedal, they have a 20-foot speed, and they get the Stretching Reach Ancestry feat, basically spending an action to enter a stance where, with a 2-handed weapon, they have reach. When they're quadrupedal, their speed increases to 30. Here's a couple of feats. There's Thunderous Slam. Basically, when they're bipedal, they can spend an action to slam down into their other posture. Every creature within 10 feet has to do a reflex save to avoid becoming prone. It's almost like you're doing a trip attempt on every creature within 10 feet. And even if they successfully save, they are off guard until the end of your turn. At level 13, they can take Trampling Stride. They have to be in their quadrupedal posture. You get to move double your speed and walk through enemies that are at least 1 size smaller than you. They have to do a basic reflex save to avoid your unarmed fist attack damage. Next are the Madrosarai. They are a humanoid species with magically infused blood who strive to control their emotions. They possess eyes in the back of their heads and believe in societal order. They have arcane blood, which determines their heritage and some ability of theirs. Here's one example. The teal-blooded Madrosarai have a reaction they can do once per day that's kind of like Orc Ferocity. If they would go down to 0 hit points, they stay conscious and their wounded value goes up by 1. They all have contained emotions. They get a -2 circumstance penalty trying to sense motives of others, but you also get a +1 circumstance bonus yourself, saving against emotion effects. Also, if you roll a success against such an effect, it becomes a critical success. So they are imperturbable. Ever Vigilant is a level 5 feat that they can take so that, because of your extra set of eyes, you cannot be flanked by creatures your level or lower. Unleashed Anger is a level 5 feat, 1 action, and you become large. You get a +1 status bonus to melee damage, but you are clumsy 1. Also, your reach doesn't increase, so it's like a lesser version of the Enlarge spell. Also, it only lasts 1 round, and you have to sustain it. It's improved by one of your heritages, but overall this doesn't sound very good. That's because it upgrades to a level 9 feat, Greater Unleashed Anger, where your reach increases by 5 feet, and you don't need to sustain it. Next is the Maraquoi. They focus on developing networks of relationships. They have 7 distinct genders that all contribute to their species' reproduction. If you want to play a character who travels far and fast, you should play a Maraquoi. Also, if you want to be a furry monkey person. And I don't know about you, but I was curious about the sex. So here's this paragraph. There are 7 sexes. You have 3 sires, the Earth Sire, Sky Sire, and Water Sire, a bearer, a cradle, a sharer, and a facilitator. So they all get involved. And it says at some point that you have lots of relations because you have 7 different ancestral lines. Very fascinating. Family gatherings must be chaotic. And can you imagine having 7 helicopter parents? On to the mechanical stuff. They're monkey-like. They have a climb speed of 15 feet. They also, it says in the description, they have control over the hairs in their fur, and they function as sound receptors, so they can actually hear through their fur. You'll also get a prehensile tail, naturally. Here's a feat. Follow the bouncing Maraquoi, level 13. This gives you the wall jump skill feat, and you can use wall jump to make additional jumps off of creatures your size or larger, as if they were walls. And once per turn, you can shove or trip that creature while doing so. That sounds like a lot of fun. Next is the Moyishuu. The Fae, known as Moyishuus, are renowned across the galaxy as fun-loving explorers and adventurers. They want to venture out into the universe and experience the lives and emotions of it. They have the emotion sensibility, which lets them detect creatures within 20 feet who have emotions. You can sense the emotions of creatures that don't have the mindless trait. They also have soul feel. During their daily preparations, they choose between fury, joy, sorrow, and wonder, and they can detect creatures with that emotion within 60 feet. And they also have a +2 circumstance bonus to sense motive against creatures who have that emotion. So this leads to interesting role-playing opportunities that wouldn't be possible otherwise. Maybe your very appearance evokes wonder, for example. Each heritage is attuned to one of these emotions and allows you once per day as a free action to change your soul feel to that for 1 minute. This one, the Court of Dance, for example, lets you attune to joy for 1 minute. Here's a few feats. Raise crystalline strands, level 1. You basically get to block enemy damage with your hair. Because one of the things I didn't mention is that you have fortified crystalline hair. If an enemy hits you with a critical hit strike, you can, as a reaction, basically turn the damage into normal damage. That's so punk. But you can only do it once per day because your hair is damaged and needs to regrow, of course. And apparently hair is very important in Moyishuu culture because you get a -2 circumstance penalty in diplomacy checks with other Moyishuus. Now, something I only realized after recording is that you can take a level 1 ancestry feat that gives you a special ability like the one on the screen, Uncanny Wonder, that you can only do once every 10 minutes, but if you're attuned to the appropriate emotion, you can do it once every minute. This one lets you, when an enemy critically fails a melee strike against you, confuse and distract them so that the next time an ally makes a strike against it, it is off guard to them. Level 13 feat, Center Your Emotions, lets you spend 10 minutes to choose a different emotional state for your soul feel. And it's a free action to revert to the emotional state of your heritage. So that gives you some more flexibility there. And here's a level 13 feat that gives you some mechanical benefits being in a particular state. Fury gives you a +2 circumstance bonus to athletics checks. Joy gives you a fly speed of 20 feet. Sorrow gives you a burrow speed of 10 feet. And Wonder gives you a +2 circumstance bonus to perception. Next are Novians, which you were probably looking forward to because of the thumbnail. What the fuck is this? They are miniature suns, born from the death of a star. Incredibly dense despite their size. It says in the description they're a few hundred pounds. They average a foot in diameter and have a spongy, semi-solid texture that shifts and reshapes to create humanoid expressions, most often with dramatic eye spots and a toothless mouth. And I have to read this paragraph. They're bombastic narcissists who live for a millennium. They're proud and self-centered, with overinflated egos and plenty of attitude. Yet they're also fun to be around, creative, exuberant, and entertaining. They thrive in the spotlight and take joy in storytelling, sports, and competition, particularly in tests of strength and mettle, where they can publicly show off their might. Novians consider themselves fearsome, powerful beings, and they're so long-lived as to be beyond many mortal concerns. Alright, as you can see, I'm pretty compelled by this ancestry. Now, what can they do? They are tiny. They have a fly speed of 20 feet. Despite being tiny, you have 2 hands with a reach of 5 feet, but actually manipulating objects in your surroundings is you using your gravitational field. You also emit light like a torch, and there's no apparent way to turn it off. Notably, among your standardized ancestry feats, you can take an unarmed attack, which gives you a burning tendril unarmed strike to do fire damage, or solar flare, which has a 30-foot range increment. They have, as you can expect, some fire-themed feats, like launch plasma, level 5. Once per day, you can launch a little mini-missile that is a 5-foot radius burst, doing fire damage in the area. At level 13, they can take Burn Up. Whenever you use Shooting Star, a lower level feat that lets you move your speed 2 times in a straight line with a single action, you do fire damage to all creatures in the spaces you move through. They do a basic reflex save, and if they critically fail, they take persistent fire damage. And remember, you can move through enemy creatures because you're tiny. Next are the Orocorans. Since the destruction of their homeworld, some Orocorans have freed themselves from the influence of Octurn's foul eldritch fluids. Octurn is the former planet, which was actually an egg for a new god, the Newborn. As you can see, these are the Demogorgon face creatures, at least the Demogorgon from the show Stranger Things, along with a face tentacle like a Mind Flayer, the real Mind Flayer from D&D. Yeah, basically they became addicted like drug addicts to the birthing fluids of the Newborn. Blech. They have limited telepathy, and here's one of the heritages that stood out to me, the Blood Filter Orocoran. You get the Siphon Poison ability. You suck some of the poison out of an adjacent willing ally, giving them a DC 10 flat check to end any persistent poison damage they're taking. So that's a really gross, but useful combat ability. This level 1 feat, Nostalgia for Worlds Lost, I found interesting and kind of funny. You miss your homeworld so much. If you critically fail a save against an emotion effect, you only have a regular failure. And also, once per hour, you can think of your lost home's landscape to soothe your mind. Shifting, pus-filled flesh mounds, lakes of toxic runoff, and skies clouded by noxious green gas. Then on your next skill check, if it takes 2 or fewer actions, you get to roll twice and use the better result. So thinking longingly about what you've lost, this disgusting, scary planet lets you grapple an enemy or give someone some emergency combat healing. This level 9 feat is Drain Blood. This is a vampire-like ability where if someone is bleeding or is grabbed, paralyzed, restrained, unconscious, or willing, you can jab your proboscis into them and make them drained 1 or 2 on a critical success. You might have to do an athletics check. And you gain temporary hit points equal to their level. The last feat is Spew Acidic Bile, level 9. You violently vomit your bile in a 30-foot cone, dealing acid and poison damage. If they fail, they are sickened. Next are the Osharus. Slug-like Osharus are religiously studious creatures. If you want to play a character who's studious, cautious, and curious, you should play an Osharu. So the lore goes into their history and why they're so scholarly, but their feats and features are basically all physical and have to do with mucus. They all can have slime squirt. Once per minute, they can spend an action to excrete their slime to make a square adjacent into difficult terrain for non-Osharus for 1 minute. Level 1, Sheltering Mucus. Your mucus is thicker and cushions you if you sleep with medium armor. You're not fatigued the next day. And every 10 minutes, if someone bites you, you can, as a reaction, spurt a buildup of mucus down the attacking creature's throat, forcing it to do a fortitude save to avoid being sickened. That's positively disgusting. Next, level 5, Stinking Slime. That slime squirt ability, the first ability, any creature that starts their turn in it now must do a fortitude save to avoid becoming sickened. You are that disgusting. Next are the Raxilites, our dandelion people. Raxilites are tiny, community-focused, sapient plants with a penchant for technological innovation, especially when it comes to augmenting their bodies with useful tools. Their legs that you see here are actually explained as a product of their technology, which, despite their being tiny creatures, give them a land speed of 25 feet. They all have an L-fan, a lifting floret activation network. Attached to their brainstem are a cluster of artificial vines that they can use to interact. They give a reach of 5 feet, even though it's a tiny creature. At level 5, there's a feat they can take called You've Gotten Mail. Messaging Augmentation Integrated L-fan. You can transmit to an adjacent willing creature the amount of information you can say in 10 minutes in an instant. And you can also telepathically communicate with other Raxilites within 30 feet if you share a language. Next is a level 13 feat Fractal Light, which is clearly inspired by real-life dandelions. You've engineered your body and equipment to be able to break apart into smaller pieces. Once per day, you spend 2 actions to enter this form that makes you amorphous. You lose the benefits of your armor, but you get resistance 8 to physical damage and are immune to precision damage. You cannot cast spells, activate items, or do attack or manipulate actions, and you get a flight speed of 10 feet. It lasts up to 5 minutes, and you can reassemble yourself with a single action. The last feat I'll show is Wide Spectrum Artillery Repulsion Device. also called a ward. It gives your Elfan a force field that has its own hit point pool. It blocks incoming range attacks, has 39 hit points, and regains 6 hit points at the start of your turn. If it goes down to 0, it is disabled for the next 10 minutes. Next are the Ryphorians. They are the most widespread species of the planet Triaxis. Triaxis, I learned, has generations-long summers and winters, and very brief autumns and springs. Ryphorians have different form for winter, summer, and the period in between. If you want to play a character who lives closely with dragons and leans into more fantastical elements, you should play a Ryphorian. They have the best hearing, apparently, even better than elves. They have notched ears. They get a +2 circumstance bonus to seek checks and to initiative rolls against hidden or undetected creatures, as well as to sense motive. Here are a few feats that show their ability to bond with another creature. It doesn't have to be a dragonkin. Sympathetic Bond is a level 1 feat that lets you form a temporary bond with one willing sapient creature. It takes 10 minutes. And you two need to have a deep bond beforehand. When you're within 30 feet of each other, you each get a +1 circumstance bonus to will saves. The level 5 feat Bonded Rider, with someone who's your sympathetic bond, you can ride them as a mount so long as they are one size category larger than you. This allows the mount to have 3 actions, but you're limited to 2, as normal for when you are riding another party member. Now combine this with the standardized feat mount that we saw earlier. If you have, say, that large creature that can change its posture, the Izalguun, serving as a mount to a Ryphorian, and they're bonded in this way, they each have 3 actions. Another option is to take the level 13 feat synchronized action, makes that unnecessary. You can use 3 actions also, as well as your mount. Okay, next are the Talfi, or Talfi, I don't know how to pronounce it. Talfis are mole-like people known for their use of glowing, lightly radioactive plants and dyes, as well as their deep connection to the dense stone of their homeworld. They've got that weird nose thing going on that moles have. And here's another picture of a Talfi who's an artist that I thought was really cool. They're small with a 20-foot speed, but they have a burrow speed of 15 feet, and naturally they have the scent ability. Here's a couple of feats. Level 5 feat, Tunnel Vision. You get an imprecise tremor sense that has a range of 30 feet. That enables you to take Tectonic Tactician at level 17. You've learned how to fight enemies without leaving the safety of your tunnels. This makes your tremor sense a precise sense, and something else that's really cool, you can target enemies that you detect with your tremor sense with strikes, area fire, and auto fire, as long as the only material between you and the enemy is something you could burrow through. Now, burrow speeds only let you move through the ground or through dirt, so not rock walls. Still, that's a pretty cool ability in the right campaign. Next is the Trox. Troxes are hulking, insect-like humanoids. Notably, they are large, and they have 4 additional vestigial arms. If you want to play a character who's devoted to found family and whose fearsome exterior belies a peaceful protector, you should play a Trox. Here's a couple of feats. Level 1, Powerful Limbs. You get to use your size to your advantage. You get a +2 circumstance bonus when grappling foes that are at least one size category smaller than you. So if you like wrestling, and there are many creatures smaller than you, this is a good ancestry. Frenzy is a level 5 feat, which is like Rage. Once per day, if you see an ally damaged by an enemy since the end of your last turn, you enter a Frenzy. You get a +2 status bonus to your melee attack rolls, and a -2 status penalty to armor class for 1 minute. So that's pretty impactful. Risk and reward, reminiscent of the original Barbarian Rage in Pathfinder 2e, but a bigger bonus and penalty, and it's pretty flavorful. Next is the Urog, or Urog. Urogs are contemplative, silicon-based life forms inspired by geometry, and are often found wandering the stars in search of answers to the galaxy's most enigmatic questions. Now, I'm a math nerd, and I'm going to say that these are the nerds of the Starfinder setting. They are large, and they hover above the ground as they stride. As I said, they're kind of nerdy, and also, I believe, neurodivergent. Their attribute flaw is charisma. Their direct approach feature means they take a -1 circumstance penalty to deception and diplomacy checks. If you're a typical Urog, you might become agitated when your routine is disrupted, possess encyclopedic knowledge on an extremely niche field of study or work of art, and others probably find you rude when you speak tersely. So there are some interesting thematic imaginative feats here. First is conglobation, which I learned is a word for turning into a round mass. First of all, you need to take this heritage, which kind of gives you a penalty to AC. You're limited to this ceramic armor of yours, you cannot wear armor, and your combined item bonus to AC and dexterity can only be +4. However, conglobation gives you a +4 circumstance bonus to AC. It does take 2 actions to enter it, and you are immobilized. However, that's a big bonus. This next feat is called I Can't Tell If You're Flirting. Sometimes the subtlety of sarcasm and innuendo is lost on you. You respond better to direct communication. You get a +1 circumstance bonus to all mental effects, and any success against such an effect becomes a critical success. There's a significant downside. If you try to coerce or influence a creature, a failure becomes a critical failure. Knowledge Bomb is another level 1 feat. You spew information about a topic you're passionate about that no one asked for. Target a creature within 30 feet. You attempt a lore check because it can be any lore. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. And you check it against the will DC. And if you succeed, they become stupefied 1 for a round. That one gave me a laugh. The next one is actually, level 13 feat. When an ally that you can hear and can hear you fails a skill check, you can use your reaction to chime in at the last minute with a bit of helpful and, more importantly, accurate information. You use the aid action. If you succeed, you can retroactively add the circumstance bonus you provide to the check. And by this level, if you're using aid as written, rules as written, you are almost certainly giving a +3 or +4 to the check. Erudite Strike, level 17. You basically study a creature within 30 feet before attacking them. You attempt a recall knowledge check against the target, and whatever your check is, you get to use that roll for your next attack roll. Now, I assume you're going to know the result of your roll. It's not going to be secret as normal for recall knowledge checks. I chose this because of the funny last sentence. If you critically fail the recall knowledge check, you are overcome with analysis paralysis and become stunned too. Our last ancestry is the Worlanisi. Worlanisis are naturally lucky, blue-skinned humanoids. The text describes them as being sought-out adventuring partners because of the luck they can bring to a party. They have these horn cones for ears that channel their psychic abilities, but also make them vulnerable to psychic attacks. They have psychic reverb. They have a -1 circumstance penalty to saving throws against mental effects, and a weakness to mental damage equal to 1/4 their level, minimum 1. So here are some luck-affecting feats. Level 1 feat, your lucky number. At the beginning of the adventuring day, you roll a d20. This becomes your lucky number. And the first time you roll it on an attack, check, or saving throw, you treat that roll as a 20. If your roll at the beginning of the day was a 20, your lucky number becomes 1 instead. Building on that is Press Your Luck as a reaction. You can share your lucky number with your party. When an ally you can see rolls your lucky number, you can pass the good luck over to them and change their roll to a 20. However, this counts against your once-a-day limit. Here's a level 17 feat, All In. There's an earlier feat, Double or Nothing, that lets you use your lucky number twice in a given day. Here, if you haven't used your lucky number yet, you can spend both uses to get a natural 20 on an upcoming roll. The effort strains your relationship with the primal forces of luck, so you don't get a lucky number tomorrow, so effectively losing 4 uses of it. So that completes our whirlwind tour of the 21 new ancestries. Now, we're going to conclude with the 2 new versatile heritages that are in this book. Heritages, as you know, can be substituted for the heritage from your ancestry that you get at level 1, and they unlock a whole other feat tree of possible ancestry feats that you can take. The first versatile heritage is the Gap-Touched. For most people, the Gap is a hole in history, but the Gap-Touched have lived through or studied the secrets of that mysterious era. If only they could remember everything. Once again, we were being teased by Paizo about knowledge about the Gap and are given nothing to work with. Gap-touched individuals live a strange truth that even they struggle to understand. And then this string of characters, what the hell is that? Many Gap-touched try to spread this fact to the wider galaxy, but they inexplicably fail to communicate it and often forget about it themselves for long stretches of time. The harder they try to explain it to people, write it down, illustrate it, or understand it, the more confusion is inflicted on those who would try to perceive it. Here's what the heritage gives you. It gives you additional lore in Gap lore. Again, we know nothing, the GMs know nothing about this. An occasion to make some shit up at the table, I suppose. And you get a +1 circumstance bonus against mental effects. But here are a few feats that it unlocks for you. Forgotten Heritage, you can take your ancestries, one of their heritages, at level 5. And there's a sidebar, in fact, that if it doesn't make sense, let's say there's a heritage that makes your size different. If it's weird for you at level 5 to suddenly gain this heritage, then you might want to talk to your GM and work something out. But this allows you, obviously, to not miss out on a heritage from your ancestry simply because you took this versatile heritage. Flickering Existence, level 5. Once per minute, you can suddenly vanish and reappear in a flash of static. This lets you step 10 feet instead of 5 feet. You have to take one of the lineage feats, one of the ancestry feats that are only available at level 1, the one that lets you step as a teleportation effect. The other lineage feat lets you take a level 1 ancestry feat from an ancestry that's different from yours, which is a very interesting idea. I'll put it up on the screen. You present evolutions distinct from any other members of your species. So yet another weird thing that can only be explained by something that happened during the gap. Level 13 feat, Tactical Flicker, built on the previous one. This lets you make a strike before or after the movement. Pretty cool. Level 17 feat, Fatal Error, 2 actions you can use it once per day. You can wield the gap to muddle a creature's existence, potentially deleting them as thoroughly as if you killed them. You choose a creature within 30 feet. Even if they make their saving throw but don't critically succeed, they're slowed 1 for a round. If they fail, they're slowed 1 for a minute. But if they critically fail, they additionally have to do a fortitude save, and if they fail that, they die. And not only that, all records and memories of the creature become hazy, similar to those of the gap. However, it has the incapacitation trait, so less effective against higher level creatures. The other versatile heritage we get is the Xenometric Android. Androids don't always look like robotic humans. They can be built to resemble any creature. You get the constructed ability of androids, but not their low light vision. Constructed is what gives you a +1 bonus against certain physical things. You can select from android feats up to 13th level, as well as feats of the ancestry you resemble, and Xenometric Android feats. So that's a lot of feats, and your base ancestry is the ancestry that this archetype is making you resemble. Then you choose a heritage from your ancestry, but get none of its mechanical benefits. I assume for the purpose of unlocking feats. It says this should not be taken by a member of a constructed ancestry, such as android or a human. Now there are 3 lineage feats that are available that you can only take at level 1. Magitech Core gives you a cantrip and unlocks certain feats, Robust Core gives you a general feat, and Homebrewed Core gives you one of these prototypes. One making you large, one making you small, and one giving you an extra pair of limbs, each with some accompanying abilities. Here's one Xenometric Android feat called Advanced Physiological Mimicry. This lets you gain a heritage from your ancestry in addition to this one. It's similar to the gap-touched feat we saw earlier. Now, nearly all the rest of the feats for the Xenometric Android are feats that would not be surprising under the Android from the Player Core book. Feats like this, Name Knight Shield, lets you cast the Shield cantrip. And also when you shield block with the Shield cantrip, you can step as part of the same reaction. And you can access the Android feats up to 13th level. Now, I'm not actually sure design-wise why these feats remain segregated from Android feats and why Android characters don't have access to these feats. Maybe someone with more wisdom and who has put more thought into this can leave a comment. So that was my quick tour. As I said, I only had time to go through a small percentage of what's in this book. And this book has a lot of crunch. I think I've gone through less than 10%, maybe above 5%, maybe, of all the crunch, of all the options in this book. But yeah, this book really demonstrates how wild they've gone with Starfinder and how weird they have made character options, which I think is pretty cool. And there's a lot of concepts that are based off of animals and their quirks, and others that are just very imaginative, creative, and weird. Notably, there are no rarities in this book. We don't see any of these ancestries like the miniature sun, given the uncommon or rare rarity which we have in Pathfinder. Even the idea of being gap-touched is not assigned or defined as being a rare thing. They're basically leaving it up to every table, every GM, to decide what is prevalent in their world. And remember, in the Starfinder campaign setting, at least in first edition, Absalom Station is very cosmopolitan because anyone can access it using the drift in 1 to 6 days from anywhere within the galaxy. And Absalom Station itself is huge, and of course there's the whole galaxy in the universe with all of its many planets, where you can use these elements to make whatever society of beings you want. Even in their definition of what is a core ancestry, they've abandoned the idea that there's anything particularly special about them. They're not more prevalent than any other ancestry. They're not necessarily the most prevalent or even populous peoples in the galaxy, it says. The designation of core is game terminology meant to express Starfinder's focus for the convenience of our players. No organization in the Pact Worlds would group these 10 ancestries together in any kind of special category. So they completely abandoned the idea of humans or human-like creatures being normal in this setting, which is not new with this book. After all, look at this picture that opens the core ancestries part of this book. Even the player core book alone made it possible to have parties look like the cantina in the original Star Wars movie. But anyway, I'm here for it. Just as Star Trek is about going where no one has gone before to encounter strange new worlds, in our science fantasy, Starfinder, we're able to create any world or society or peoples limited only by our imagination. So that's my coverage of Galactic Ancestries. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like this video and subscribe. Also support my Patreon. Supporting me gives you ad-free early access to most of my videos and exclusive content. And also join my Discord community. There are over 6,000 of us. I hang out there a lot. We talk Pathfinder and Starfinder 2e and other gaming. And also, if you want to play Pathfinder 2e, we have a drop-in, drop-out organized play system called Endless Tale Tavern. So come to our Discord to check that out as well. So that's it. I have been Ronald the Rules Lawyer. I'll see you next time.